After having two successful games released in the NES's life cycle, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were definitely hit big in video games, aside from their animated series, which had just gone to network television on CBS. Well, in 1991, Konami gave us a third TMNT game for the NES, and it was one of my favorites. So here it is. This is my review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3: The Manhattan Project. Cowabunga, dudes! This is Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. So, greetings, my fellow YouTubers, and welcome to Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. My name is Doyle, better known to as the Big D, back again with another video game review. Today, I'm going to be reviewing a game from my childhood that I have absolutely loved. I haven't played this game in ages. I really would like to try to have it, but well, it just depends on how much it is, and I don't have any current consoles that have it on the Cowabunga collection. Yes, it's another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, and this I think is probably the best of the bunch that came out. But you don't have to take my word for it. The Turtles are back, and this time ready for their biggest and greatest adventure on the NES yet. So here it is. I bring to you Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3: The Manhattan Project. TMNT 3: The Manhattan Project is a side-scrolling beat-em-up produced and developed by Konami. It was released in Japan in 1991 and then early the following year in the US. This game was not released in Europe, however, and in Japan it went under the title of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 since the first Ninja Turtles game went under a different title. But I think this game is just so awesome. Now, while the game features play mechanics similar to the previous game, the NES port of the arcade game, but it's an original title for the system without any preceding arcade version. Anyway, I feel like this game has become a part of was a part of my childhood. Well, actually, pre-teen days and what have you. Anyway, the game was released in Japan in December 91 and then a couple months later the following year in the US. And as I've said, there was no no European PAL region release though. But again, I think this is such an incredible game. It also was the first TMNT game I ever beat since I couldn't beat the other two. Now, here's how our story starts out. Well, the Turtles are taking a little break from their crime fighting in Manhattan as they are spending their vacation in Key West. That's, of course, in Florida. I'm sure you already know that. Well, they have a TV here that can let them watch their main reporter, April O'Neil, report from New York itself. However, she just mentions a few things, the signal goes out. And what caused this? You guessed it. Oh, Shredhead. Shredder is back. And this time, he's revealed that he has also done something really, really shocking. He has pulled the entire borough of Manhattan and turned it into a floating island. To make matters worse, he's got April again, and this time he's holding her in the Technodrome and challenges the Turtles to come and stop him. Well, so you better be ready. You have 8 scenes to go through. Most of these have two stages. The first and third scenes are one whole straightforward. Anyway, you can have up to 2 players. You can play as Leo, Raph, Mike, or Don, each wielding their signature weapon. But there's 2 different 2-player modes. The first mode allows both players to hurt each other with their attacks, while the other mode disables it. Yes, just like what, well, you could possibly do with Battletoads. At least I think you could do that. But anyway, the player has a limited number of lives that gets depleted if you run out of energy. If you run out of lives, your game is over. But if you But if you're playing the two-player mode, if one player has run out of lives, they can use the remaining ones from the other player's remaining stock. This is possible to do in the one-player mode as well. Now then, the player is allowed to change their character every time they lose a life. You only have 3 continues, however, so you better be on your turtle toes for this. The controls are mostly unchanged from the previous game, with one attack button and one jump button. Now, turtles can now perform a toss attack against their enemies by holding the D-pad downwards while pressing B. That's when I learned that would make it very, very simple to breeze through various foot soldiers. You'll have lots more foot soldiers than you did in the last game. Not just ones with shurikens or boomerangs and spears and what have you, but lots of others. There's also a special attack called the Turbo Attack, which you can do by pushing A and B together. But a word of warning though, if you every time you do this, a portion of your energy will be lost unless they are on their last bar of life. And mind you, you better try and save those for bosses and what have you. Don't try and use it on a lot of enemies that gang up on you and what have you. Anyway, now of course the 8 scenes span from the beaches of Florida to the floating island of Manhattan to the Technodrome, ultimately concluding with Shredder's lair and finally to Krang's spaceship. Now, of course, aside from the variety of foot soldiers you'll also encounter mousers and stone warriors as well. Now, the game's bosses include, of course, not just ones you'll remember from the series, but also from the toy line and the animated series. Plus a couple of familiar names. But anyway, I'm going to get to that, which I'll get to that in just a little bit. Now, the first stage starts out on the beach, where you'll plow through all sorts of foot soldiers, especially ones that'll throw sand at you and what have you. And there's lots of others. Rocksteady is your first boss. He's easy to beat. Just watch out for the spears gun, that spear gun of his. Also, unlike the arcade game, you can do a jump kick attack downward onto him. And of course, like the last game, bosses will flash red whenever they're just about to be defeated. Next, for scene 2, you go on a surfboard for the first half, and in the second half, you're on this here sub that's going up and down, where you'll face more foot soldiers and fireball blasters and laser guns. At the end, you'll face Ground Chuck, which, of course, that was a Turtles villain I was not familiar with. I soon found out this character actually appeared in the Planet of the Turtleoids episodes. Let's see. Yeah, and let me tell you, he's pretty tricky, but I think you can easily get. Here's a hot tip. Once he gets stuck in a corner, once he starts charging, he stops and gets stuck in a corner. That's your best opportunity to get him. Just be careful though. He'll rip a pipe off the sub and attack you with it. But don't worry, I think you'll have no trouble with him. Scene 3 will take you to a way to get to Manhattan, the Brooklyn Bridge, which is missing lots of pieces. You'll face more foot soldiers, and you'll have a mini boss battle with Slash. Once you beat him, as long as you're safe, you'll encounter Pizza along the way. That's something I forgot to mention in the second one. Pizza will restore your health. But mind you, this game's kind of scarce on the pizza, though. But I think if you use that little bit of toss attack with the foot soldiers, I don't think you'll have any problem. As long as you use your turbo attacks on Slash, you should have no trouble in managing to keep yourself going and getting that pizza. Get through more foot soldiers and stone warriors, which make their intros in this, and you'll face Bebop as your boss. Who now wields a mace ball on his head. He's shaved off his funky hairdo. Then, once he's defeated, the Turtle Blimp will get you, and you'll head for Manhattan Island. face off with more foot soldiers and stone warriors in the first half. The next half, you'll go into the subway tunnel and face off with more foot soldiers, and then face Dirtbag, who was also introduced in the Planet of the Turtleoids episodes. Fun fact: I actually got I used to have the action figure of this character and Ground Check after I played the game. Those were the last two TMNT action figures I used to own. Once you defeat, who can be pretty tricky at times. Now, next up in Scene 5, you go into the sewers. You'll face off some pretty tricky foot soldiers as well. Some that'll slide into you. You'll also have mousers and a few other things. Just close to the end, you'll have a mini boss battle with Mother Mouser. Yes, a foot soldier will be riding this giant mouser that'll shoot out the little mouser, so you better be careful. But however, once you defeat the rest of the foot soldiers, you'll go into the second area, which is just you're just hearing water running. You get pizza dough, but you better be ready. You will face Leatherhead, who, believe me, is easily the most difficult boss in the game of them all. So you better use extreme caution. Be careful of his, three-way gun blast, his whipsaw tail, and this attack once he's almost defeated. He'll run back and forth, try and grab you and choke you and knock you out. So you better be careful. Once you defeat him, you'll head on down and you'll go to the Technodrome, where you'll face off with more of the same old, same old. You'll face off against some of the familiar little robotic creatures you fought. I forgot to mention you fought in Scene 5 in the port of the arcade game. After that, you'll be riding a conveyor belt, which that's a fun ride. And then the boss will be Razar from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze, which was released earlier that same year in 1991. Yeah, he's tough with his claws and an ice breath attack. Once you defeat him, you'll face Shredder in the next area. Once you get him, you've saved April. But unfortunately, Shredder escapes and you gotta go after him. In Scene 7, the first area, you'll be riding kind of like an elevator type lift. Kind of like in Streets of Rage in ways. You'll be tackled by foot soldiers on flying platforms, as well as you'll see giant mouser eggs, so you gotta be careful. In the second half, you go on the rooftops. Face up with more foot soldiers, and also even face foot soldiers coming out of this here flying machine. After that, when you reach the giant neon foot sign, then you face the other baddie from Secret Ooze, and that's Toga, who can be pretty tricky. You gotta avoid his fast punch, and since he's a snapping turtle, he'll bite your head. So you better be careful. You beat him, you go to Scene 8, as Shredder gets beamed up, and you are heading for Crane's spaceship. You'll face off with more of the same old, same old. This has 3 parts. In the first part, when you get to the end, you'll face off with another Mother Mouser. The second one, it gets more tricky though. You will find pizza along the way in both areas. But once you get to the end of that, you'll face Krang, who, believe me, this is a real pushover from the previous game and what have you. Once Krang's exoskeleton's blown up, Krang will float up onto the screen and disappear. But now here comes part 3, and this will be, next to Leatherhead, the second most difficult boss in this game, Super Shredder. That's right, if you remember in the end of Turtles 2: The Secret Ooze, Shredder uses the ooze, the remaining ooze, to become the Super Shredder, and you gotta be careful. He'll do fast kicks, a real hard punch, but your biggest worry is this special kind of attack like the Hadouken attack that Ryu and Ken use in Street Fighter. Believe me, you better be careful. If you get hit, you will lose a life instantly as you shrink back to a regular turtle, just like the mutagen race did in the last game. So try and be careful because it'll take a lot of hits to put Super Shred out of commission. Also, he'll use an electrical blast, well, charge to teleport to one section. So you gotta know where he is and try not to get shocked though much. But as long as you got enough lives, you should have no trouble. And I just gave you this game, the whole thing, just in case you you played it. So I apologize. Then the spaceship starts to blow up. You escape on the turtle blimp, and then soon Manhattan Island's back, and you get your congratulations and the cast roll call and the credits. So anyway, I really love this game. Now, Manhattan Project's one of the three great Konami games I really loved to rent. I rented this numerous times, along with Tiny Toon Adventures, which was actually released the same year this was in 1991, and Bucky O'Hare, which was released later when the same year it was released in the US. Anyway, it was awarded the best NES game of 92 by EGM, Electronic Gaming Monthly. All Games describes it as an excellent, well-rounded game. And I couldn't have said it better myself. Nintendo even won a Nintendo Power Award for Best Overall Game. Definitely. Oh yeah, one other thing I will point out, I didn't know about this. You can, in the NES version, you can input the form of the Konami code in order to access an options screen. But in the Famicom version, it has it accessible by default from the title menu. Now, entering the Konami code in the Famicom version will simply return a generic congratulatory sound screen instead. But anyway, nevertheless, I really, really loved this game. This is definitely a very fun game. You can find it, but if you can't afford to buy a loose cart, no problem. It's available on the Cowabunga collection released last year. I love the graphics and what have you. The music for this is done very well. What can I say? Mayhem Project, definitely good. I do love it. Give me a moment. Here's a bit of a screenshot from the first scene of the game, the beach. And here's a little freeze frame of the battle with Crane, what it looks like. Oh yeah, one other thing. I forgot to mention what the turbo attacks are like. Leo has a cyclone spin attack with his swords. Raph has like a drill attack. Don has a rolling form, kind of rolls and what have you. And Mike can do well get his hand kick and do a jump kick right in the face and what have you, or something like that. I've heard that actually does take off the most damage than any other, even though Mikey and Raph's attacks are, well, not quite as good as Leo's and Don's, but nevertheless, I've heard from somewhere that Mikey's turbo attack will easily wipe out a lot of Betty's boss's health in no time. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I definitely would recommend you trying Turtles 3 The Mayhem Project. I love this game, and it's still good. I sometimes will watch a playthrough of it on YouTube at times. So anyway, that's going to do it. What did you think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 The Mayhem Project? Let me know in the comments section below. If you liked the video, click the like button, subscribe, and be a part of the Big D Nation. Join me next time when I bring to you a TV log of Mork and Mindy. So if you like this, consider checking out my reviews for the other Ninja Turtles games. In the upper left-hand corner is my review of the first game from 1989. The upper right-hand corner is my review of the arcade game. I talk about both the coin-op and NES versions. Or if you would like a different kind of Konami game, go to the bottom left-hand corner and see my review for a game that was released the same year originally came out in 1991, and that would be Sunset Riders. Now, of course, and I will talk about the second game Turtles in Time later this month, where its SNES port was also released the same year Mayhem Project was in the US. In the bottom right hand corner is the button you can click to subscribe. If you like rankings and reviews on movies, TV, music, video games, etc., then I'm your guy. Thanks for watching, and oh, I forgot to point out on the cover art you see a Triceratops. They're not in this game. Just I better give you that while I still can. So until next time, I'm the Big D saying, see ya.